Daf Yomi, Tractate Zevachim, page 50, Daf Nun. And starting from the bottom of 49b, where it's talking about, the Gemara states that a matter derived via a juxtaposition, Davar halamed mehekesh, chozer melamed b'kal v'chomer, then teaches its halacha via a kal v'chomer. Some say you cannot do that, but apparently this opinion says you can. I think I remember previously learning that if there was an opinion that if something is learned from a hekesh, it can't be used with the kal v'chomer. But this, now the opinion is that you can. It can be done. Okay, top of 58. Miditanya devated b'shmoel, top of 58, is apparent from that which is taught, from that which the school of Rabbi Shmuel taught, discussed in a previous chapter in 41a. Davar halamed beheki shma shem binyan av am Rabbi Yirmiyah lo lichtov tzifon b'asham tezmi binyan av mechatos lamay hafaz kasvei lav lememra lidavar halamed behekish en choyz halamed beheki binyan av. The Gemara asks, what is the halacha as to whether a matter derived via a juxtaposition can teach its halacha in another context via a paradigm? Rabbi Yirmiyah says it must be that it cannot. As if it could, let the Torah not write the requirement to slaughter an offering in the north of the temple courtyard with regard to a guilt offering, see Leviticus 14:13, and one can derive it via a paradigm from the halacha of a sin offering, since they are both offerings of the most sacred order. For what halacha did the verse write it with regard to a guilt offering as well? Is this not to say that a matter derived via a juxtaposition cannot then teach its halacha in another context via a paradigm? The Gemara questions this proof. But according to your reasoning, why not derive the halacha that a guilt offering must be slaughtered in the north from the halacha of a burnt offering via paradigm? What is the reason that this halacha is not derived from there? It must be because it can be refuted with the following claim. What is notable about a burnt offering? It is notable in that the Torah teaches that it is entirely burned on the altar, which is not so with regard to a guilt offering. The Gemara now states its objection. In that case, the derivation from a sin offering via a paradigm The Gemara questions this proof. Let's see where we're here. For what halacha did the verse write it with regard to a guilt offering as well? Is this not to say that a matter derived via juxtaposition cannot then teach us halacha in another context via paradigm? My time lo asim mishum dika lemefrach ma le'orashin kali l'chatas nami kal lemefrach ma l'chatas shekem mechaperes ham chayvei krisos. The Gemara questions this proof, but according to your reasoning, why not derive the halacha that a guilt offering must be slaughtered in the north from the halacha of a burnt offering via paradigm? What is the reason that this halacha is not derived from there? It must be because it can be refuted with the following claim. What is notable about a burnt offering? It is notable in that the Torah teaches that it is entirely burned on the altar, which is not so with regard to a guilt offering. The Gemara now states its objection, and in that case, the derivation from a sin offering via paradigm can also be refuted. What is notable about a sin offering? It is notable in that it atones for those sins liable for punishment by karet, which is not so with regard to a guilt offering. If so, there is no proof from here. The Gemara suggests an alternative paradigm. Although the requirement to slaughter one of these offerings, meaning a burnt offering, sin offering, or guilt offering in the north, cannot be derived from any one of the others, one can derive the halakha concerning one of them from the other two. The Gemara clarifies from which two could one derive the third. Let the merciful one not write the requirement to slaughter the offering in the north with regard to a burnt offering and derive this halacha from the halachot of a sin offering and a guilt offering. The Gemara refutes this derivation. What is notable about these two offerings? They are notable in that they atone for transgressions, whereas a burnt offering does not atone for any sin. Lo nichtov Rachmana b'chatos v'teisi mihanach malach shekain Zevachim. The Gemara suggests that the merciful one not write the requirement to slaughter an offering in the north with regard to a sin offering and derive this halach from the halachot of these others, the burnt offering and the guilt offering. The Gemara refutes this derivation. What is notable about these two offerings? They are notable in that they are brought only from male animals, whereas an individual sin offering is a female animal. The Gemara suggests that the merciful one not write the requirement to slaughter an offering in the north with regard to a guilt offering and derive this halakha from the halachot of these other two. The Gemara refutes this derivation. What is notable about these two offerings? They are notable in that they are brought by a community just as they are brought by an individual, whereas a guilt offering can be brought only by an individual. Davar halamed b'gzera shava mahu shilamed b'hekesh amar Papa v'zot torat zevach hashlamim the gomer im al toda lamadnu letoda sheba min ma'aseh midyashchan shlamim da'asu min ma'aseh. The Gemara returns to his discussion of hermeneutical principles. What is the halacha as to whether a matter derived via a verbal analogy, like Zera Shava, can teach its halacha to another matter via a juxtaposition? Rav Papa says, the verse states, and this is the law of the sacrifice of peace offerings, which one may offer to the Lord. If he sacrifices it for a thanks offering, then he shall offer with the thanks offering unleavened cakes mingled with oil, and unleavened wafers spread with oil, and cakes mingled with oil of fine flour soaked. Leviticus 7:11-12. From this juxtaposition we have learned that the money to purchase a thanks offering can come from money used to redeem the second tithe, since we find that the money to purchase a peace offering can come from money used to redeem the second tithe. The Gemara asks, from where do we derive that the money to purchase peace offerings themselves can come from money used to redeem the second tithe. As it is written with regard to peace offerings, and you shall sacrifice peace offerings and shall eat there. Deuteronomy 27 verse 7. And it is written with regard to the second tithe, and you shall eat before the Lord your God in the place which he shall choose to cause his name to dwell there. Deuteronomy 14:23. The usage of the term there in both passages serves as a verbal analogy and demonstrates that a halacha derived via a verbal analogy, that of a peace offering, can then teach a halacha via its juxtaposition to a thanks offering. Amar le marzutra bere derav mari ravina ma'asar degan chuli ba'mahu. Marzutra, son of Ramari, says Ravina, this is not approved, because the tithe of grain, including the second tithe, is merely non-sacred. Therefore, it cannot be used to prove that in the realm of consecrated matters, a halacha derived via verbal analogy can teach a halacha via a juxtaposition. Amar le, Amar Amra, Lamed Kodesh, Umilamed Kodesh. Ravina said to him, does the one who said, in the realm of consecrated matters, the halacha derived via one of the hermeneutical principles cannot teach via another of those principles, say, only when the halacha that is derived is in the realm of consecrated matters, and the halacha that teaches is in the realm of consecrated matters as well? He holds that even if that which is derived is in the realm of consecrated matters, it cannot teach its halacha via one of the hermeneutical principles. Therefore, since peace offerings are in the realm of consecrated matters, the halacha derived from the juxtaposition of thanks offerings to peace offerings serves as a source that a matter derived via a verbal analogy can teach its halacha to another matter via a juxtaposition. Davar halamed b'zeh shava ma'hu shilamed b'zeh shava amar Rami Rachama Tanya solis murbekes lamadnu lechuba shiba soiles. The Gemara asks, what is the halacha as to whether a matter derived via a verbal analogy can teach its halacha to another matter via another verbal analogy? Rami Rachama says, it is taught in a braita with regard to the types of bread that accompany a thanks offering. If he sacrifices it for a thanks offering, then he shall sacrifice it with the thanks offering unleavened loaves mixed with oil, and unleavened wafers spread with oil, and loaves mingled with oil, of fine flour cooked with oil. Leviticus 7:12. We have derived from here that the poached breads accompanying the thanks offering come from fine flour. Chalos minayin tamelomar chalos chalos rekikin minayin tamelomar matzos matzos. The Braita continues, from where is it derived that the loaves accompanying a thanks offering are also prepared with fine flour? The verse states, loaves mingled with oil of fine flour cooked with oil. Leviticus 7:12. And it also states in the same verse, unleavened loaves mingled with oil. From where is it derived that the unleavened wafers accompanying a thanks offering are also prepared with fine flour? The verse states, unleavened cakes mingled with oil. Leviticus 7:12. And the verse also states, unleavened wafers spread with oil. The Braita derives via a verbal analogy that the unleavened loaves mingled with oil are prepared with fine flour, and then teaches the halacha concerning unleavened wafers using a verbal analogy from the halacha of unleavened loaves. Amar le Rabina, mimai dimatos matzos mechalos gamar dilma Ma'afe Tanu Gamar. Ravina said to Rabbi Merchama, from where do you know that the Tana of the Braita learns the verbal analogy of unleavened and unleavened from loaves of the thanks offering? Perhaps the Tana learns the verbal analogy from the word unleavened, stated with regard to meal offerings baked in an oven, about which the verse states explicitly that they are prepared with fine flour. And when you bring a meal offering baked in the oven, it shall be unleavened, cakes of fine flour, mingled with oil, or unleavened wafers spread with oil, Leviticus 2:4. If so, there is no source that a halacha derived via a verbal analogy can teach a halacha via a verbal analogy. Ela ma'avid Tanya v'kilbo u'pirusho eotzi melam shemotzi shalim. Rather, Rava says that the source is from a different Braita, as it is taught in Braita, with regard to the bull offering of a high priest, and the skin of the bull and all its flesh, with its head and with its legs and its innards and its dung. The whole bull shall he carry out of the camp to a pure place, where the ashes are poured out, and burn it on wood with fire. Leviticus 4:11 and 12. This teaches that he brings the offering out whole. Yachol Yisrafu Shalim Never Kanashot Uchraav Never Hanan Roshachrav Malahan Alide Nituach Afkan Alide Nituach. The writer continues. One might have thought that he should burn it whole as well. It is stated here, its head and its legs, and it is stated there with regard to the burnt offering, and he shall cut into pieces, and the priest shall lay them with its head and its fats in order on the wood that is on the fire, which is upon the altar. But the innards and the legs he shall wash with water. Leviticus 1:12-13. Just as there, the burnt offering is burned by means of cutting the offering to pieces, as explicitly stated in the verse, so to here, it is burned by means of cutting the offering into pieces. The Gemara clarifies, if these are compared, one could say that just as there the burnt offering is prepared for being burned by first flaying it, so too here the bull offering of a high priest should also be prepared for being burned by first flaying it. To counter this reasoning, the verse states, and its innards and its dung. Leviticus 4:11. The Gemara asked, what is the biblical derivation? How do these words teach that there is no requirement to flay the animal? Rav Papa says, just as the dung remains inside the animal when the animal is burned, so the animal's flesh remains inside its skin. In any event, the halacha that the bull offering of a high priest is cut into pieces before it is burned is derived via verbal analogy. The Tanya, Rabbi Omer, Nemar Khan, or Uasar Upirish. Rava continues, and it is taught in Braita that Rabbi Huda Nasi says, it is stated here with regard to the bull and goat offered by the high priest on Yom Kippur, it terms skin, flesh, and dung in the verse, and the bull of the sin offering and the goat of the sin offering, whose blood was brought in to make atonement in the sanctuary, he shall be carried out of the camp, and they shall burn in the fire their skin, their flesh, and their dung. Leviticus 16:27.